Star Wars Young Jedi Knights Delusions of Grandeur Chapter 20. The assault on Mechas 3 came with such sudden force and devastation that Jason could hardly believe only one bounty hunter was responsible. The attacking vessel pummeled its way through the atmosphere, throwing off sonic booms like obscuring veils. The ship thundered overhead, crashing through the rolling clouds, pausing only briefly to loose a volley of concussion torpedoes. Smokestacks crumbled, dropping like felled trees. Secondary detonations ignited combustible gases that rose from the industrial sections in an inferno that blasted through the underground tunnels. A line of factory buildings toppled in a devastating chain reaction as the spreading shock front rippled out their foundations. Alarms screeched in the administration building. Lights flashed, sirens wailed. Tycho Thole ran to diagnostic screens inside his office. His skin had gone a pasty gray, and his eyes widened in terror. Beside him stood Raynar, his simple Jedi robes contrasting with his uncle's garish display of noble heritage. The young Jedi Knight scrambled to defensive positions. Tenel Ka took her place beside Jason, cool and ready to fight, her hand on the hilt of her lightsaber. Even in the midst of such confusion, it made Jason glad to see how quickly the warrior girl came over to fight next to him. "Why bother with all the sirens?" Jaina said, pressing her palms to her temples. "The whole planet's automated. Do droids care about that stuff?" Jason looked out the window across the smoky landscape. Another building erupted into flames. "Good thing there aren't any people out there." "But think of all the droids!" the MTD wailed. "They're doomed." Zeke stood near Jaina with his arms crossed over his chest. He squinted into the soot-stained sky as the attacker swung around for another furious pass. A cargo load of concussion bombs dropped again, blowing up another thermal exhaust port. Zeke's face turned grim as he recognized the ship. That's Dengar. How did he know to come here? The targeting rooftop cannons tracked Dengar across the sky and fired long blasts of clackering blue iron cannons and sharp green turbolasers. But the cybernetically enhanced bounty hunter reacted too quickly, flying, dodging, skipping left and right. The clumsy automated defense systems could not keep up. A gruff voice came over the citywide intercom system, echoing from 1,000 amplification speakers. "This is Dengar. I know the bounty hunter Zeke is down there. I followed him here to the hiding place of Born on Thole." "Why does everybody make that assumption?" Zeke said. "I intend to cause much more damage unless you surrender my bounty." After a pause, Dengar's deep voice continued. "Further negotiation is not acceptable." An army of scurrying machines spread out through the factory city. Fire response droids and disaster mitigation crews pumped flame-suppressant chemicals into the burning wreckage. Salvage crews set up to work cleaning out portions of the assembly lines and strove to keep them running at all costs. Dengar's ship cruised overhead, banked, then came back toward the administration building. With a calculated malice, he dropped another bomb directly into a droid fire response fleet, obliterating them. Tycho gazed around in confusion and horror. "What are we going to do?" Tenel Ka turned toward him skeptically. "First, we must know if you staged this attack. The timing would appear somewhat convenient. Is this another new hoax like your assassin droids on Kuwar?" "Certainly not." Tycho looked at her, the picture of appalling innocence. "My dear girl, that terrorist is destroying my factories." Raynar studied his uncle for a second. "I believe him. He never damaged his own facilities like this." "No, Dengar doesn't work for Tycho," Zeke agreed. "He's after Tarkana's bounty. He intends to bring in Born on Thole, dead or alive. It doesn't matter which." He frowned, his green eyes hard as emeralds. "I outed him with him once, but I could count on it again. Dengar's one of the best." The broad windows rattled with the thunder of Dengar's passage. He swooped past the administrative headquarters. As if to taunt them, the bounty hunter loosed another explosive, but detonated it in midair, so the walls of the office buildings merely shuddered. Jason looked at Raynar with concern. "Hey, if we promise to keep Raynar safe on this trip, and if it's not the safest place to sit here in office while we get bombed, I think we should head for the Rock Dragon and get out of here. If we all leave Mechas 3, Dengar won't have any reason to stay and cause more damage." Zeke looked over at him and Jaina. "The lightning rod is closer. We could get to my ship and harass him, create a diversion so the others can escape." He raised an eyebrow hopefully. "I could use a good co-pilot, Jaina. You wouldn't mind coming with me?" She hurried to Zeke's side. "What are you waiting for? EMTD, you go with Jason. He's a fair pilot himself. But he and Tenel Ka may need your assistance from getting the Rock Dragon out of here." The little droid floated toward his excitement, barely managed to keep his new microprocessor under control. "Oh my, this is a sobering responsibility. I will do my utmost to let you down, Mr. Jaina." Jaina grabbed Zeke's hands and they raced hand. Why does he have to grab his hand? As they raced out of the roughness together toward where he had docked the lightning rod. Jason, Tenelka, and Raynar headed for the door as well. Tycho Thol stood all alone, looking sickened. I can't leave here. This is my factory planet. I got Mechas 3 up and running when all the systems had fallen into despair. I won't abandon it just because some vandal comes to shooting. Raynar sputtered, "You can't stay here, Uncle Tycho. You get killed. You've got to come with us." "No, I'm going down to the reinforced lower levels. I'll be perfectly safe there. You children go on now." Leaving his office, Tycho turned and jogged out of the sight down the corridor. Jason looked after him, but Tenelka gestured for them to hurry. "Jason, we must get to the roof or our plans will be wasted." The three ran toward the nearest turbolift. The EMTD floated after them, still working to control his new repulsor jets. Wait for me!" Breathing hard, Jaina secured her crash webbing as Zeke launched the lightning rod into the air, roaring out of the overhanging shipping area where he had landed. She glanced at the dark-haired young man as he worked the controls, his gaze intent on the controls. "Sure, it's good to fly with you, Zeke," she said. "You seem to be making this a habit, getting in situations where I have to come rescue," he said, smiling slightly. "Aha! I'm not half bad at rescues either, you know. Watch it, one of these days I might turn the tables on you." "I don't suppose I mind that so much." Zeke punched the engines for a new surge of acceleration. They streaked up between tall manufacturing centers into the open air. Jaina leaned forward into the cockpit windows, trying to see through the great curls of smoke. Dengar dropped a thermal shockwave generator into the building, roof of the building adjacent to Tycho's administrative headquarters. The building level burned its way downward like a luminous diving bell, incinerating floor after floor until it impacted the building's foundation. "I'll concentrate on flying," Zeke said. "You take the weapons control. Sounds like a plan. Let's go." Out of nowhere, they soared in. Jaina fired the laser cannons without mercy, targeting the hull of the bounty hunter's ship. They skimmed past so close that Jaina could have kicked Dengar's crash if the lightning rod's access patch had been open. Zeke sped onward. Dengar launched after them in hot pursuit. Wrestling with the piloting controls, Zeke rolled the battered old ship. He took them down into a downward loop and flew beneath his enemy, jerking sideways and up. Jaina could see his subconscious instincts made Zeke use his force skills to dodge, but she said nothing to interrupt his concentration. Dengar followed, blasting away fiercely with the ship's weapons. I think he'll hold a grudge against me for what I did to him on Zayas," Zeke said. With a touch of irony, Jaina said, "At least he's dropped to stop damaging buildings. Our goal was to distract him so the others could get away safely." "Of course, I'd like to get away as well," Zeke said. "Hang on." He headed to the direction of the smoldering buildings Dengar had already blasted. "That looks like a good prospect." Snagging and ready to collapse, twin skyscrapers blasted side by side in parallel infernos. With the bounty hunter still clinging to the afterburners, Zeke arrowed the ship directly between the blazing columns. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Jaina muttered. The lightning rod shot into the gap between the burning towers as a network of connecting girders broke loose. Damaged beyond repair, the skyscrapers began to topple. Up on the rooftop, the smell of fire saturated the air. Jason and Tenelka ran side by side, with Raynar close behind them. "There they are," the Alderaan boy said, pointing. The polluted wind rippled the sleeve of his Jedi robe. With Dengar's ship perilously close behind them, firing his blasters, the lightning rod plunged recklessly between two collapsing buildings. Fire and smoke raged upward as the towers crashed together, and Zeke's ship vanished into the inferno. Dengar broke off his pursuit at the last instant, hauling his ship up and away from certain death. He left the wreckage behind and came about. Tenelka drew a breath of dismay as the lightning rod vanished into the billows of smoke and debris, but Zeke shook his head. "I'm sure they made it. Somehow. Zeke's too good a pilot, and I'd sense if Jaina got hurt." "This is a fact," the warrior girl said. Jason looked over his shoulder toward the stairwell, trying to locate EMTD. The little floating droid had not managed to keep up with them. When Dengar spotted them and soared to the rooftop, Jason forgot about EMTD and thought instead about his own survival. "To the rack jagon, quick!" The Hapen passenger cruiser sat where they had landed on the opposite side of the roof. Tenelka sprinted along the sheer edge, running as if she were simply doing her morning workout. Tossing her red gold braids behind her shoulders, she glanced down, observing the extreme height with interest. Lobaka would have enjoyed being up here. "Yeah, I'd rather he was up here to pilot the ship, too," EMTD Jason called. "Where can he be?" Dengar's inelegant ship circled low. Before they could reach the safety of the rock dragon, the bounty hunter landed defiantly at the edge of the roof, blocking the way. Jason, Tenelka, and Raynar staggered to a stop, looking grimly at each other. The bounty hunter opened the hatch and leapt out. His shoulders were broad, and he carried two massive blaster cannons, each of which usually required 2 arms to lift, though Dengar easily held one in each hand. The mouth on the bounty hunter's bandage-wrapped face sagged like a loose-fitting clothes, which were dirty and stained from 1,000 fights and 1,000 quick repair jobs on his ship. Dengar's sunken eyes flicked from side to side as he scanned the 3 young Jedi Knights like a targeting computer assessing potential damage. He aimed both blaster cannons at the companions. "Hostages? Expendable," he growled. "Where's the born unthol? Tell me." Raynar crossed his brown-robed arms and put on a brave face. "I am Raynar, son of Born Thol. My father isn't on Mechas 3. He never was." Dengar's expression did not change. "Then you will tell me how to find him, or I will begin eliminating hostages." His swallow face showed no sign of regret or anticipation. "I hope one of you cooperates before 3 of you are dead." Around the metropolis, emergency response droids cruised through damaged areas. Smoke poured into a boulder, blacker and more noxious than the pollution belched out by the manufacturing centers. Jason and Tenelka exchanged glances, but no one spoke. Dengar waited precisely 5 seconds. Then he raised his blaster cannon, pointing both at the single target, Jason. The young man's heart thudded, and his hand groped for his lightsaber. He wondered if he could possibly use his blade to deflect such high-powered explosive bolts. He was sure his uncle Luke Skywalker, could have done it. "You will not kill my friend," Tenelka said, stepping in front of Jason to shield him with her body. She threw her own rancor-toothed lightsaber and flashed its turquoise blade. Jason saw her lips part like a feral grin, filled with challenge and menace towards anyone who would threaten him. Jason glanced over at Raynar, who stood concentrating, his gaze fixed on Raynar's ship. Jason felt a ripple in the force and instantly knew what the blonde boy was trying to do. "It doesn't matter to me who I start with," Dengar answered coldly. He readjusted his aim toward Tenelka. She didn't flinch. Jason added his own Jedi abilities to Raynar's, concentrating on the bounty hunter's ship. The craft had landed close to the edge of the rooftop, and its rear support pad rested. "Let this be a lesson to you. Let this be a lesson to you," Dengar said. The bounty hunter's finger tightened on the firing stud. Defiant and fearless, Tenelka held up her lightsaber, ready to block the shot. Jason squeezed his eyes and focused. He had to help her. With every ounce of his concentration, Jason drew on the force to nudge, push, shove. Dengar fired both blaster cannons. Using the force, Jason jostled the weapons. Both shots went wide, missing Tenelka. Behind him, Raynar was still focused on one goal. "And let this be a lesson to you, Dengar," Tenelka said, sensing that she was joining her efforts to Raynar's. Jason lent his assistance as well. Dengar's ship slid backward, scraping across the rooftop. Its rear support pad dropped over the side of the building. The craft tipped and lurched, its hull grating against the rough edge of the roof. The bounty hunter whirled in alarm. "What?" Suddenly, the rooftop door burst open. The towering hulk of IG-88 strode out, arms extended, weapons powering up. EMTD hovered above the assassin droid's body frame, amplified his normally tiny voice to the commanding boom. "I suggest you leave our friends alone, you arrogant bully." Tycho Thol, in his colorful robes, confidently followed the 2 droids out of the rooftop. "IG-88, I order you to protect us." The assassin droid aimed his built-in weapons. Dengar reacted with lightning speed, whirling away from Tenelka and letting loose a volley of blaster bolts. Most ricocheted harmlessly off the assassin droid's durasteel torso, leaving cherry-red spots of absorbed energy. However, one bolt glanced off IG-88's skeletal frame and hit EMTD's outer casing. The little translating droid shrieked as sparks flew from his side. His optical sensors flickered wildly. Spinning into the air like an asteroid after a collision, he let an electronic wail. IG-8 opened a fire, and again, but with such precision that instead of blasting the bandage-wrapped human off the rooftop, his weapon turned one of Dengar's heavy blaster cannons into slag in his fist. Jason remembered that the assassin droid's new program which prevented him from shooting down the bounty hunter outright, even to protect his masters. But IG-8 was resourceful enough to find alternatives. Behind him, Dengar's ship teetered precariously in the edge of the roof. Still expressionless, Dengar tossed the smoldering firearm away and grabbed his remaining cannon with both hands. But IG-8 targeted carefully with the volley of shots and drew away the muzzle of the second blaster, leaving Dengar unarmed. Then a droid bombarded the roof plates at the bounty hunter's feet. Seeing the situation was hopeless, Dengar dove for his ship. Off balance, it groaned and tilted toward an inevitable crash between the buildings. IG-8 fired once more just as the bandage-wrapped bounty hunter scrambled through the hatch. Blaster bolts sizzled off the frame as Dengar sealed himself in. With a final shriek of protest, the ship fell from the rooftop. Jason gasped, and Raynor raced to the edge of the building to look down. The ship plunged and spun, like a paving stone dropping off a cliff. At the last instant, Dengar managed to power up his engines and wrench the ship away out of gravity's clutches. Spinning the craft sideways, the bounty hunter thundered through the narrow gaps between buildings. From the rooftop, IG-8 launched grenades towards the stern of Dengar's ship in an attempt to disable the engines as he departed. The explosive fell short as the bounty hunter whirled and dipped, zigzagged skillfully along random course. "No more grenades!" Tycho yelled at the assassin droid. "If you can't bring yourself to actually destroy a ship, at least wait till he comes back into range, or you'll damage my buildings." Before Dengar could circle around and come up again, though, the lightning rod shot up out of an alleyway, gaining speed as Jaina blasted volley after volley of laser fire into Dengar's already damaged craft. "All right, Jaina," Jason cried. "Go." Facing Zeke's unexpected and relentless pursuit, Dengar made a logical choice. He set course for escape, and with an angry roar, his ship careened into the sky. Standing beside Tenel Ka, Jason watched the bounty hunter's craft jet upward at high speed until it was swallowed by the swirling black smoke. Dengar appeared in orbit, leaving behind the smoldering wreckage. Disappeared into orbit, leaving behind the smoldering wreckage of his devastating attack. Planting one fist in each of his hips, Raynor observed the bounty hunter's departure with defiant satisfaction. "That'll teach him not to tangle with young Jedi Knights."